we have to trade? We had access to a locker room. Everyone, 49ers, locker room. You know, meet the 49ers, meet, you know, whoever it was. We thought, let's trade in what we can do for access to those small little pieces of a venture-backed deal that, carve out $30,000, we'll all pitch in 5, kind of thing. So we got that going.
Is that when you got into VA Linux?
Yeah, VA Linux. I know that's a deal. How do you know this?
We invested in VA Linux also.
So VA Linux, I have to tell you a story. So we did that, we invested in. So I had a number of portfolio businesses that, and I'd done that with Bain. I'd been a Bain portfolio LP for a long time. But anyway, VA Linux was one of the businesses that was the biggest single, I don't know if it still is, single day, I think it was the actual opening price. But then it was the biggest single day gain in history.
Yeah.
And so, there was 5 of us, and so we all had VA Linux shares. And some of us had put more in than others. So usually when they had a little pot, we'd all pitch in, but some would more in. So this one I had more. And so we were doing the math throughout the day in practice. So I was in the meeting room, and someone we had the equipment guy watching the ticker, so that he'd come in and go, 147. And so the math, and everyone in the room now is just half jealous, half mad that they weren't a part of it, half, but it was like, by the end of the practice, I think it was 210 or 215, I can't remember. And it was worth about $9–10 million.
The NFL bubble?
Yeah, NFL bubble. So it's like, Brent Jones, I'm retired. He ended practice. He goes, I'm retiring. He went to the car. It was a joke, but he went in his full uniform, just got in the car. I'm out of here. And we were too stupid to collar it. We didn't understand how you could actually not have to just hold it through the period, and you could figure out a way to actually use some of the. We held it, right? And by the time the collar came out, it was down to 50. By the time you go from 250 to 50 emotionally, you're like, I'm holding it because it's going to go back. That was a great lesson for me. And the investor I am today, VA Linux was an important piece to that puzzle.
Nice. Well, as an investor, I've been an investor for a while. I've often used.
You were talking about the crossovers.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm getting lost in some things, but so I wonder if that's what got me started. And then I got an opportunity to join Sorensen Capital in 2002, which was a new firm that was started, kind of Intermountain West, geographic specific $250 million fund, and that's why I got into direct investing. So that's the transition that I made. Also was a founder of a business that while I was still playing, an e-commerce business called Found Inc. A friend of mine in college, when he was messing around with the URLs before the government shut him down, he had figured out an algorithm that put a geographic boundary around an internet search. This is 94, 5. And so it's a pretty cool thing that you could find some locality out of this internet. And so out of that idea, we formed a business and went to the retailers. And I remember going up and down the Bay Area to all the big retailers expressing this, this fear of being Amazon, and that you could use your brick and mortar stores and query inventory at real time, and you could have it picked up in the store or shipped that day, and you had your own inventory in your brick and mortar stores. Oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Oh my gosh, that's a great thing. Well, okay, let's look at your inventory. I don't know what's there. Well, how often can you get a look at your inventory? Well, every 30 days. Tough to query that in 15 minutes and know what's in there. So obviously we were ahead of the curve. Ironically, 2 of the businesses that have been most successful in our first fund have been around e-commerce because my partner and I started those businesses back then, clawed it out, and now those businesses that had survived and gone through the whole cycle, now the industry and retail is ready, and we went in and bought those businesses. A lot of times, in a lot of ways, because of our expertise, those owner entrepreneurs felt like, hey, these guys, they have the stripes to show it, and very helpful. But the crossover, I think, would probably be better, football to venture. Just if I look around the locker rooms of the venture capital firms, it seems like there would be a lot more crossover. But in private equity, it still is, especially in mid-market. The big, huge private equity, shops, probably not. It's just more of a data-driven modeling,
Sure, you're still getting involved with teams, you're bringing in teams,
The more interpersonal parts of it, negotiations, my favorite thing to do is look across the table at, an owner, an entrepreneur like Jerry Klein at Innovative Interfaces. It's a library software, kind of the backbone of public and academic libraries. And he was a really prickly guy, and getting him to agree to sell his business that he built out of his garage in 83. He was a librarian at UC Berkeley and had built this business, and he'd not given one dollar of equity to anybody in 30 years. He owned the whole business 100%.
How did you negotiate that? What's your negotiating style? That you took over from negotiating with agents and teams to, with Jerry trying to take over?
I think the number one thing is self-awareness. In doing that, I know that I have my own persona that comes in and gets, and so just, you can imagine when a guy from the Bay Area meets me, and there's this, interchange, and it's usually about football or about it. But we need to get the nuts and bolts. We need to this. You talk about someone's business; it's their third child. It's their family, and so you can only kind of volley back and forth about sports or about the old days or something, and then you got to get to it. But so I think more than anything, it's the ability to get people across the line. It's a metaphor there when you use about let's score the touchdown, let's move the ball, but it really is about seeing the other person and saying, and I think quarterbacking really prepares you for this because, to Steve Covey's point, 11's too many. So you're going to be a master in psychology. Jerry Rice, I didn't yell at, because if you yell at him, it didn't go well. Brent Jones, I'd yell at, because he actually did better when I yelled at him. Ricky Waters, you just try to keep a cage around him, because he's nuts. And I only say that as gingerly as I can. I love Ricky; he's great. But I'm just using the ideas of what you really have to be, and you have to be self-aware yourself. When you make mistakes, don't mitigate and tell the story of what happened that went wrong. Just take the accountability right there. Get people moving in the right direction. So I think in a lot of ways, a lot of times, I've put myself in a situation where I'm around a lot of smart people. But not necessarily really self-aware people. And some of the smartest people I've ever met are missing that piece that would have made them so much more dynamic, so much more powerful. And so the ability to kind of be integrated with people and understand them. And Jerry was a really interesting guy. I mean, I have a great relationship with him today, and I really honor. I think it's more. I really appreciate people. I appreciate their unique personalities, what got them there, and I try to stand in their shoes and look backwards and forwards, and I did that when I was playing, and it really helped me a lot. And so I think in this business, that's really helpful. At some level, those relationships are built off of just a number. You got a price, and it either works or doesn't work. But there's a lot of things around price. There's a lot of issues around control. In our firm, we really slice control thinly. We try to figure out, because no one wants to give up control. Everyone's an owner-entrepreneur because I want to play tennis and golf. I want to own it. It's mine. I'm going to do it. It's my personality. And so now you want to make a transaction where you're going to be majority owner of his control. It's like it doesn't work, right? The first day you meet, there's no way. And then you start to figure. I try to convey the control, the word we're gonna talk about and wrestle with and ring and try to figure out how that works.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most fun part of the job for me.
Yeah. Well, how does it work after you make the investment? You're on the board. You've got 50 to 200 million into a company. I've used this metaphor before. I'm just a coach, not the quarterback. In your case, have you ever used that line? And what do you do when they're not making the right plays? When you don't think they're making the right plays?
How many meetings have I been in when serious things are being discussed and someone will break out an inevitable football metaphor, And there's this moment when they're like, yeah, we gotta, I don't want to,
we're in the red zone.
We're in the red zone. We gotta put it in, And there'll be a moment where he's like, oh, you want to explain that, Steve? Because there is something different to the metaphors and the actual experience of fumbling. But I think they do work. They're similar, and it's about people. I go back to Steve Covey. I mean, it really is about too many guys and how to figure it out. The metaphors I use every once in a while. I can't help it. It feels funny, but sometimes it's just the best way to communicate. So how I work with companies, when I've been the chairman, and usually if it's your deal or you led the deal, then we don't have a portfolio group that we hand off to. We did early on our first fund, but it just didn't work. We were such a high touch, high feel, old school private equity kind of shop. To hand it off to a portfolio group, the owner, entrepreneurs, management teams they were like, wait, we did this, we kind of created this whole strategy together, we negotiated all these tough things together, we kind of got all this and we handed me to this guy. Right. And even as great as that guy is, we struggled. And so we kind of just eliminated that over time and realized that our deal teams need to stay full cycle with the management teams. And so that's what we do. Okay. One of my number one philosophies that I tell people is, I do not know your business. You know your business. I am betting on you. I'm not betting on the company. I'm underwriting you. And I think that's mostly true. Everybody knows that you get fired, you can do a bad job, you can get transitioned. But I think it really is, in my heart, true when I tell them I'm underwriting you as a manager. And then we have a strategic plan, and I feel as invested in the strategic plan as they do. So if it's not working, the last thing, and I know I learned this in football, the last thing you want to do at that time is turn and point the finger and say, you're the operator, it's your strategic plan, you got to fix it. That guy's going to tell you to screw yourself, right? I mean, it's like, forget it, you just ruined it.
It's about accountability.
So there you have it. So we're in this together, and we work that out. And if you hold that tight, you hold that accountability, Phil, that you just mentioned, and you keep self-aware and reminding yourself that you have to remain accountable or else it won't work, even if it feels good for a minute. To say, if you hadn't done this thing here, look what happened since you made that. I told you it was your decision, and you made it, and look what's happened since. If you want to go through the mitigating circumstances that got you to here, right now, when we're all accountable, it doesn't work. It only works to say, we're in this together. And then, deconstruct how it went and see what the learning is. But at the top level, if you're going to go in there with a heavy stick, and I know people with heavy sticks that were very successful. Vince Lombardi, but underneath it, Bill Parcells. But then I met Bill Parcells and got to know him. He had the image of a big stick, and he used that very effectively, but he actually didn't hit people with it. You know what I mean? It was like it was another carrot that he had, another way to manipulate people, and not manipulate, it's the wrong word, but push people in places and got them to go. And I really admired Bill. I thought I'd hate playing for him. And after getting to know him, I was like, I'd really like to play for you, because he was a real people person. And I think in most businesses, the people that are really skilled in self-awareness and people skills are going to be successful. I mean, I'm sure you can get into commodities or cattle, and probably don't need that as much, but
let's talk about the Niners today, to get your views on them. Kaepernick, what do you think of him? What does he need to do to win the Super Bowl?
I mean, people always, I remember when I was playing, and my idol and hero, Roger Staubach, I met for the first time at midfield of the '92 championship game. He was the honorary captain for the Cowboys. Half the reason why I played so horribly is because I met my hero at midfield of the championship game, and I couldn't quite recover. That's an exciting.